Hi, everybody, and welcome to our LinkedIn Live. I am Jeff Schwantz, Chief Revenue Officer here at Advisor360. And joining me today is Chuck Failla, host of the goRIA podcast by Investment News. So today we're going to spend a little time talking about advisor marketing in the RA space and our findings from our own research that we've done, but there's no better expert than Chuck to delve into this. So, Chuck, one of the many things that you talk about in your own podcasts and helping advisors frame the transition to RA. And I think we both know a little bit about how important marketing is, especially when advisors are thinking about doing something, maybe going solo, maybe tucking into another practice. So in this year's Advisor360's Connected Wealth Report, we found that RAs ranked marketing and prospecting the number 2 thing behind only account opening that they wanted to most improve, what they wanted to get better at. So just hugely, hugely important. So would love to start by just asking you the question, Chuck, why do you think it's so important to really focus on this for advisors?
You bet. And Jeff, first of all, thank you for having me on the show and of what you guys do at Advisor360, and a big thanks as well for that perhaps slightly over generous introduction, but I appreciate it. So marketing, everything we do at goRIA is through the lens of giving advisors what they need to know before they make the move from the broker dealer space to the RIA space. And to your point, and it's a good one of the main reasons that people make the move, a lot of people think it's the higher payout, and that definitely is true, right? But it really is the freedom to run your business as you wish. And the biggest category, just as your report very correctly highlighted, is the ability to do marketing. Marketing is so important because without marketing, how do you grow, right? You really need to get your name out there, even with your existing clients. You need to market to get the referrals. They don't just happen by sitting back and waiting for good things to happen. So it's not so much just marketing for cold new clients, but also marketing to your clients to help generate those referrals. And what's nice about the RIA space is the ability to do it as you wish without having to go through multiple layers of compliance. No, you can't do this. Then you send up another one to the top of the food chain for approval. That comes down. No, you can't do that. When you have your own RIA shop, it's not like it's the Wild West, right? You still have to stay compliant, but it's reasonable, right? And I'll steal a phrase from Michael Kitces. I had the pleasure of doing an interview with him not too long ago. And the way he compliance at the broker-dealer space was like lowest common denominator, right? So if you have a big wirehouse with 10, 12,000 advisors, you've got to keep those guardrails so tight to keep that 1 or 2% of the chuckleheads in line, right? As opposed to when you're an RIA firm, your firm might only be 1 or 2 people. You and a partner doing is correct, so you don't have to limit yourself. Now, with regards to the technology aspect, that's the other beautiful thing about the RIA space, right? If you want a certain level of technology or something in your tech stack, you do it. If you want marketing in a certain way, you do it. You don't have to wait for the mothership to provide it for you. You go out and do it. And the last thing I'd say about this is, and they're both the same. There's a ton of resources out there to help you with your marketing from the technology standpoint, right? On how to get that marketing much more efficient, much more organized, much more productive. And the good news is there's a ton of providers out there that you could choose from and interview that will help you increase your marketing. But it's also the bad news. It's almost like drinking from a fire hose. So there's a lot of good resources out there, but you really have to kind of sort through and figure out what's going to be best for you.
Well, let's stay in that lane, Chuck, for a little bit if we could. So, many advisors, when we dig into it further, they ranked webinars and podcasting higher than other types. So let's go back to the creation process. We're in the lab. We're thinking about content. We're thinking about messaging. But the other part of this is channel. So how do you think about channels and how do you think about messaging? And is it the same message in different channels? Just what are you recommending and what are the questions you get most often from advisors when they're contemplating this topic?
Yeah, I think that's a good question as well. So the channel is going to be dependent on what type of marketing you're putting out there, right? So, and I'll speak to me personally, but then I'll also share some thoughts that I've seen with other advisors that do it even better than I do for sure. So we tend to be pretty plain vanilla. So we have something that we call Second Tuesdays with Sovereign. So in addition to doing goRIA with Investment News, which actually is my side gig, right? I actually run a firm and run a book of business. I am an advisor every single day of the year. And so my marketing tends to be very regular. And I think that's important to have that consistency. So once a month, we have something called Second Tuesdays with Sovereign. Sovereign's the name of my shop. And what that kind of does, it forces me to make sure I've got some content once a month at least, right? Because it's Second Tuesdays with Sovereign. So if it's the second Tuesday, I better have something teed up. So it forces me to be disciplined and produce some content. And the way we do that, that's more limited. So we don't push that out in social media. We push out the announcements, we invite clients, and we ask them to join us. But then what we do, and this is kind of a neat piece of technology, marketing technology, where the name is escaping me, but it basically takes your webinar, this format that people need to log in for, right? So you're capturing emails. But what's also kind of cool is throughout the webinar, it'll do like little pop-ups. Oh, were you interested in what Chuck was just talking about? Click here to schedule an appointment. So it turns sort of this one-way video feed into this interactive. It is essentially simulating the good old days when when I was building my business and we'd send out 10,000 postcards and fill up a steakhouse and have the dinners and you go through the whole pyramid, and that's still effective, believe it or not. But it does it in a virtual way. So it takes my one-time webinar content and makes it live forever. And not only does it live forever, but it also gives the ability to interact with me virtually, if you will. Right. So as I'm doing the webinar, it'll pop up saying, did you like, what that was all about with regards to, Chuck's thoughts on interest rates? Well, click here to schedule an appointment. It is a constant call to action. So that's one of many examples on how you can utilize the technology to help your marketing efforts.
Love it. So let's, same church, different pew, if you will. What's been really fascinating for me is watching kind of the rise of the finfluencers. So people that have a perspective, they'll get into mortgages and they'll think about retirement plans. It's no surprise that social media, is picking it up. They're becoming well-known personalities in the space. What I found really, really interesting is that many RIAs ranked YouTube as the #1 social platform. So again, same church, different pew from the last topic of, messaging. How are you thinking about platforms, YouTube that's out there? But it's interesting to watch the influencers use different channels with slightly different content to be able to reach different folks and probably to your point, interact with it differently. So would be interested in your perspective of like what you've seen and where you're getting, where that content is coming from.
Sure. So again, from our perspective, we don't really do the YouTube other than using it as a mechanism to deliver the video. But I know what you're getting at. And there are certain people that are doing, sort of TikTok type of shorts, right? And that content will be very different. So when I do our Second Tuesdays with Sovereign, that's very much long content, 45 minutes of a presentation, same that I would do in person, but it's on a video. But what some of these other folks are doing really, really well, that frankly, we're just not doing, right? It's just not in my wheelhouse or at least not in my bandwidth to do.
Not yet, Chuck. I feel like you've got it in you. You haven't tapped it yet.
I got to squeeze 3 more hours out of my day if I could possibly do that. I'm already fitting about 27 hours in a 24-hour day, but if I can find 28 hours, maybe I'll do that.
Let's do it, right.
But to your point, what they're doing is it's brilliant because it's a very short content to get your attention and drive traffic to their website, where I suspect they have longer content yet, and they're doing a really wonderful job with doing it that way. But I do also think it's going to be a different audience, right? So I'm in my mid-50s. I'm attracting perhaps an older demographic. When you're a younger advisor, as I was at one point, and I've been doing this for 30 years. So at one point I was a younger advisor, not so much today, but 30 years ago, I think that would be a great opportunity to get my name out there to the demo I'm going after. Because that's what they're watching, right? Is the 55 to 65 demo really watching the TikTok as much or the YouTube? Maybe, but maybe not. But I tell you what, there's a great audience out there, especially the Henrys, right? The high income earners, not rich yet. Guarantee they're all over TikTok and YouTube. And if I was, starting 30 years ago, that's something I would definitely explore. And again, the beauty of the RIA space, and not that you cannot do this in the broker-dealer space, of course you can, but the freedom with which you could do it is certainly enhanced in the RIA space.
No, exactly. One of the elements that just on that, the element around channel, and that's why I always dig in, like how you think about your content, how you think about the channels. You just hit it right there, which is just like understanding who your ideal client profile, who you're really targeting, the personas that you're going
Yeah.
after, and really having to have the channel mirror that exact that group that you're targeting. So, all right, let's turn for home here. Last topic, if we could. You said a couple of things about flexibility, things as you wish. Just being able to personalize. What was really interesting is obviously having the right tech, the right integrations, the right flexibility is important to a lot of advisors, right? It's a balancing act. So, and one of the things that we saw is that 94% of RIAs would consider leaving their firm or already have left because of bad tech. So there's clearly an opportunity around tech, but there's flexibility here as well. We see the RIA aggregators really embracing the state of the newer tech that's out there. Why? Because they want to be able to be attractive. Would be interested in your perspective of why you think you see advisors transitioning, what they're looking for. You touched on a little bit. Let's just come back to that topic that we started with.
Sure. So what advisors are looking for, and again, I'll speak from the lens of the RIA space. There's the first part of that decision tree is, do you build your own or do you tuck in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like with the market, again, you hear this a lot in the RIA space. You have the good news and the bad news and a lot of choices. If you want to build your own, there's a lot of resources and a lot of ways you could build your own. If you want to tuck in, right? And this is an interesting point. If you want to go the wirehouse route, right? There's probably 5 good wirehouses to choose from. Mm-hmm. If you want to go the independent broker dealer route, you probably have a dozen solid choices of IBDs to choose from. But if you're looking to plug into an RIA, you have legitimate choices from which to choose. Some larger than others, right? But depending on where you want to land, large shop, medium-sized shop, small. So you have a lot of these choices. And the beauty of this RIA space is that it is so competitive, right? And they're constantly competing for those advisors. And by doing this, you're fighting them on a lot of fronts, not least of which is going to be technology. So when you're leaving a broker dealer, one of the biggest complaints is the technology is antiquated, right? It's not as cutting edge as what you're seeing right now. And what we're seeing a lot in the RIA space is the ability to live essentially in one portal, right? Or one screen, and not having to into your CRM screen, to your trading screen. The best technology is put together and you're living in one spot. And the wirehouses are a little slow to adopt that because they're huge systems and they're legacy systems and hard to change. Mm-hmm. But when you have a smaller firm, one of the big benefits of being smaller, kind of a David Goliath type of thing, is your more neat new idea of which they're coming out fast and furious. You can apply that very, very quickly. Right. And I know we were talking a little bit offline about onboarding, right? So when you're transitioning your book of business, all you're thinking about is, I want to get all these clients over as soon as possible.
That's right.
You're thinking of nothing else but that. So technology, certainly the first one that you're encountering when you're going RIA or changing any firm for that matter, is the onboarding technology. And I know you guys have some experience with that. And I can tell you firsthand, that is one of the most important considerations when an advisor is changing firms, period. But certainly when they're going RIA, is they want to make sure that they have a real smooth and seamless onboarding experience.
No, you're exactly right. We help our existing clients in 2023 alone. We helped them transition more than 400 different advisor teams. And you're right. There's a lot to navigate, with you want to do it compliantly, depending on where you're coming from. We've got Reg SP considerations. So there's clearly lots to navigate there. And when you think about it, there's nearly 13,000 advisors that transition firms every single year. So plus or minus, about 5% of the call it 300,000 advisors that we have here in the U.S. So it's absolutely a consideration. So to your point, that's one of the first impressions. How do we get across? How can I get my clients to transition? How do we do it in a way that is compliant? There's a lot to navigate. I feel like this could be a whole topic, alone, Chuck, that we could talk for some time on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I tell you what, if you're open to this, Jeff, I would love to have you on the goRIA podcast and we could talk about exactly that, because that's a hot topic for us for sure.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Let's definitely do that. So, well, hey, Hey, we're getting close to time here. So thanks, everybody. Chuck, thank you for your words of wisdom, as always, your perspective. You're in the trenches, or as I say, you're in the foxhole every single day. And that's the kind of perspective that we just love, and why we do these types of sessions, to be able to grab thought leaders like yourself, dig in, find a couple of topics, rip on them for a little bit, and figure out where it goes next. So Chuck, thanks for joining us here today.
You bet. Jeff, thanks again for having me. And I'll look forward to reciprocating and having you on our show to talk about transitions, because I know our audience would love to hear about that.
Sounds fantastic. Thanks again, Chuck. Cheers.
Cheers, man. Thanks.